I want you to get together.
I'll be watching this back. Let me go ahead. I've already went. I got a thing where I call going solo mode. That's my name. I already went for a solo mode in the previous video, guys. But for those of y'all that's gonna be watching this back, we have the gentleman here who's going to be discussing kind of what we just said, but in much more detail and with much more accuracy than what I just said. So this is a treat for me. I'll be watching this back. Let me go ahead. I've already went. I got a thing where I call going solo mode. That's my name. I already went for a solo mode in the previous video, guys. But for those of y'all that's gonna be watching this back, we have the gentleman here who's going to be discussing kind of what we just said, but in much more detail and with much more accuracy than what I just said. So this is a treat for me, man. I'm, we probably should wait for some people to get in here, but again, I don't know when they're gonna get in here. So for those of us that's gonna be watching this back, do you mind introducing yourself for my channel and who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Paul, and I run a YouTube channel called Understanding Conspiracy. I also have a podcast called The Truth of Therapy Sessions, and I basically talk about anything and everything related to weird subjects, the occult, the esoteric. But it's primarily, I am a Christian-based channel. I came to Christ in 2014, so I'm a born-again believer. But I came at it through the back door, kind of through understanding a lot about spiritual warfare, demons, biblical history. The things you don't really hear about in church is what convinced me and made me a believer. So years have gone on. I'm quite well known now for a series called The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns, which is a 45-episode series on my channel. And I have published the first book, which you see just behind me here on the wall. I am currently writing the second book for that as well. So yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell.
Awesome, man. I didn't know you were writing the second book. That's gonna be pretty cool. We are interested in that. I want to know real quick, because I do know that you're Christian based, and that's one of the things that kind of drew me to your platform, because like you would talk about all this stuff, but then you would always relate it back to how we need to have a strong foundation with Christ. What would you say was your like belief system and pattern before coming to Christ, and how did it relate to the spiritual realm and the occult before you came to Christ? Like, what was your relationship with all of that?
Well, I grew up pretty a-religious. Without religion in my family, it wasn't really something we talked about. My mum and dad aren't religious in any way, shape, or form. My grandma on my dad's side was a practicing Catholic. And she was pretty devout, so maybe she had a bit of influence on me as a child, but it was never something I really was interested in or bothered about. I guess I pretty much was a basic new atheist type, anti-religious, thought the Bible was just a bunch of nonsense, and I kind of just went through life not really thinking about it for a long time. But then when I got into my teen years, I started experimenting with drugs, cannabis, psychedelics, things like this, and I started to see some things, which it makes you think, well, something's going on that I can't explain, that the senses don't pick up on all the time, So that was kind of my gateway into even getting anything remotely spiritual in my life. At the age of 16, I had a salvia trip, and I went to another dimension, came back with more questions than answers, and I basically went on a journey to try and figure out what the hell happened to me. For 2 years, I did nothing much, though, but smoke weed, because I was too scared to even bother to attempt to do something like that again at the time, But once I came to around being 18, to leaving college, going to university, so that's kind of the end of high school for you in America, going to university. It's kind of, we have like a 2-year period after high school where you go to something called college, and then after college, you go to uni. Okay, so I went to university at the age of 21, and I went to go study fine art for 3 years. And by that point, I gained access to a lot harder things, and I was pretty much by that point seeking answers, and hardcore spiritualist answers. And I was swimming in like New Age thought and religion, so kind of like Taoism, Eastern philosophies, going into more like the Gnostic understandings of God and religion, And I kind of swam in that for a long time while taking harder and harder psychedelics, all the way up into DMT. And I was doing these things to look for the answers. I wasn't just doing them for fun on a Saturday necessarily. It was a daily routine. It was a microdosing. It was an experiment. through and through to explore these realms, to understand consciousness, try and get to grips with what this was. So I guess you could call me a new ager, kind of, but I wasn't really like a new age hippie type. I wasn't interested in like crystal power or aligning my chakras or all that kind of thing and walking around barefoot. I was more interested in just getting to the bottom of what is reality and what is going on, you know, from a logistical standpoint. But the more you do that, the more logic just goes out the window, to be honest, and it starts to become an absolute mess. And for a long time, I was swimming in that world. I started to fall into conspiracy research in 2012, because that's when the world was going to end, with the Mayan calendar coming to an end, if anyone remembers that time of history. And I had to know what people, we all remember it was a crazy period, but I had to know what people were finding to make them believe such a thing. I really had to get to grips with that, you know. So I started researching conspiracy and getting into it, and then that was it. Then I was hooked. I just fell into the rabbit hole and started learning all the horrible truths about reality and the secret societies that run everything, and the conspiracy against humanity, basically. And while swimming in that research, along with all the other stuff I was doing already in the psychedelic realm, I kept bumping into the Christian perspective on all of this, that we're basically living through the end times, you know, and Satan has control, and the people who are doing all these things literally worship Lucifer, the devil, Satan himself, and they want to instigate a new world order with the Antichrist at the head. And I was like, this is insane, you know, and I didn't know what to do with any of that at the time, because Christianity to me was just some backwards, useless religion that had nothing to do with me whatsoever. And I don't see how some Jewish guy in the Middle East being nailed to a piece of wood affects me in any way, shape, or form. That's kind of how I saw it, you know. I just didn't get it. I had no reference point to understand why it was important. But as time went on, I kept listening to pastors and sermons and preachers and kind of trying to understand what the gospel actually was. And it was starting to make sense to me, kind of. But I was still holding on to this old life of trying to seek knowledge and wisdom through psychedelics and believing I was a god. It's me. All the world comes from me and my consciousness, and we're all just one consciousness, collectively forgetting that word God so we can experience what it's like to be human, and had all those type of philosophies. But this other religion like Christianity was telling me, no, there's a God separate from you, and he loves you, and he doesn't want you to perish, because right now you're in a horrible state and situation that's going to lead to the spiritual death in the end. And the only way to avoid that is to trust in his sacrifice that he did through his son, Jesus Christ. And it's kind of like, oh, well, that's heavy. I didn't know what to make of that with this other perspective. They were always clashing in my mind. But it got to a point where I was at the end of my university degree, completely burnt out through all these drugs and like a completely selfish, hedonistic, narcissistic lifestyle, thinking I'm the center of the universe and just do whatever I want to help with the consequences. You know, why not? And I basically got to this point where I was desperate, empty, heartbroken, no better off than when I started, no more wiser than when I started. And I just asked God to help me. It's kind of like, all right, so if you're there, then if this is real, show me. I need to know. And if that's the case, you got me. I'm yours, whatever. And then I that night, I had this experience, which I can only explain as being baptized, because I had a bath. Suddenly I had this experience of just being overwhelmed with this feeling, this energy, and that passed. And from that day, things kind of were very different for me. Very, very different for me. And that was my first taste of like the Holy Spirit and what the transformative power is of believing in it, what God can actually do for you in a real, tangible, supernatural sense. And then from then, things were just different. Like I would light a cigarette and it just wouldn't taste the same anymore. And I would feel this feeling like, what am I doing? You know, and I'd never had that conscience before. I never had that feeling before. It was all new to me. You know, I would smoke a joint and I'd be like, why am I doing this? What's the point? You know, but again, I never had those thoughts before. It was always, of course I'm doing this. Why wouldn't I be doing this? I've been doing it for 8 years, 5 times a day. Why change now, you know? But it wasn't like that anymore. It was like conviction was coming on me. Like it's only be understood as the conviction of the Holy Spirit was changing me. And I was being born again, process of some kind. And this time when I did just drop all these addictions one by one, I went cold turkey on cannabis and haven't touched it since 2016. I weaned myself off of cigarettes over a 10-year period, limiting the nicotine level on an e-cigarette to nothing. I quit that 3 years ago. I haven't really drank excessively in a very long time. I've had 1 or 2 on a birthday, you know, something like that, but I don't drink anymore. I'm not interested in doing it on the weekend or for any reason that isn't for a celebration of some kind, I suppose. But even then, I don't get drunk. And it's not like because I'm like forcing myself to do it. I don't desire it. I don't want to do it. It's not a problem. You know, it's a real change from who I was to who I am now. And I can only put that down to the transformative power of the Holy Spirit. So that first of all, that was the experiences that proved to me it's real. Like I asked God for help and he really did help. But then as I got away from psychedelics, there was like a period of time between like 2015 to 16 to like going into 2017 where I was having these horrible nightmares, demonic attack experiences, like being strangled, paralyzed in bed, things like this. It's called the old hag experience. The shadow people all over the place, spiders running around, I was having visions and just giant jesters in front of me out of nowhere, just walking randomly down the street, you know. And I was completely sober by this point. Hadn't touched anything like that in like 2 years, you know. And I was having these DMT flashbacks, they're called. I was going back to this realm, and I was like, what is going on? You know, I'd seen these jesters, these giant entities, you know. And the thing is, when I was doing psychedelics regularly, I'd never got visited by anything. They didn't come to me then. But now that I'm sober, suddenly they're revealing themselves to me, and they're trying to kill me. They're like attacking me. They're like putting me through hell and misery and pain and torture, and it's horrible, you know. And I was at my wit's end, and I was studying a lot about the Bible by this point, because I'd obviously had this transformative experience like a year or two prior, and getting into biblical history, trying to understand where the demons come from, what's going on here, and what can we do? And it turns out you do have power over these demons. Jesus Christ, pretty much more than like a third of his ministry was just casting out demons from people and showing that other people have that same authority through his name. And I didn't know what to do with that at the time, but it was there in my brain bank, I suppose. And one moment happened where I went paralyzed, and basically I started to die. It's the only way to explain it, because the room started to decay around me into a psychedelic mess. Darkness started to seep in from the corner of my vision, and I was limp just on the side of the sofa, can't really move, you know. And it felt like my very essence was just being torn out of me towards this portal that's opening up. And I logically was thinking, like, I must be dying. Like, this is it. This is what death feels like. You know, I'm having a stroke or something. I don't know what I was thinking at the time, but it was, you know, but you just feel it, don't you? Like, this is bad. And I just said, Jesus, help. Like a croak coming out of my lips that I could barely move, you know. And it did stop instantly, like that. Just bang, back in the room, sit up straight, sweating, like, what is going on, you know? And that for me was my final like moment of clarity. Like, this is real. God is real. Jesus Christ and his sacrifice is real. We are in the middle of a spiritual war with demons who want to kill us and are quite literally deceiving millions of people into following them and worshiping them. And we have the power to cast them out. So that was set. And I'm a believer, but that's me now, fully converted, done just through that experience alone. And never mind just the words in the Bible, which are enough. But my experience is what my faith is held upon, you know. So I started the channel in 2014 at the end of university, and it became slowly molded into this Christian spiritual warfare type of getting into grips with the conspiracy type of channel. So understanding the conspiracy from that Christian viewpoint. And as I went on, you know, I as I'm a creative person, I was watching people talk about these giants, you know, of the ancient past, and this is where demons come from, according to the narrative. Like, these giants were created because angels mixed with human women, and then they grew and grew and grew and grew and just became monstrous giants that started eating people because no one could keep them happy with all the food they were growing. It wasn't enough, you know. And the whole earth got covered in these monsters who eventually ruled over everybody like gods. And God ended up killing them all, made them kill each other. That was the punishment for the watchers who made them, the angels who made them. They had to watch their children to kill each other off. And then not about 250 years after that, after mankind started messing with their own genetics, the flood came, and God had to wipe everything clean. And it seems like that mass kill-off of the giants and the genetically engineered humans is what created the demons we have today. So their souls remained on Earth, even though their bodies perished. So if you're not an edited human and you're made in the image of God, when you die, you get to sleep. You don't get to wander around as a ghoul or a ghost or something without a body. You get to rest until the final judgment. But these things don't. They're stuck on Earth. They are restless spirits, and they have no body, no eyes, tongue, nose, ears, lips. They have no senses, but they crave and they hunger and they desire and they thirst, and they can't do anything about it. They're in hell. It's the only way to describe it. And I think when you take psychedelics, all you're doing is just tuning up your senses to be able to see them. And there they are, clear as day, been there for thousands of years, desperate for a body. And they'll say anything to anybody who encounters them or sees them to get into your body, and they'll lie to you. And this is what my work is really all about, getting to grips with what the modus operandi is, how they operate, why they're there, and what we can do to defend ourselves. But more importantly, what do they actually look like? It's a know your enemy situation. So when you mix a dragon, which is what the seraphim angels are, and which is what most of other cultures around the earth were talking about, ancient dragons were ruling over them, and then you mix that with a human woman, you get something that looks like a psychedelic clown monster. And that's what my work is really all about. That's what I show a lot of on my channel. I go through not just the Bible, but through all the cultures around the earth who have this old, very old religion where they venerate the dragons or their offspring, which look like these big, smiling, but bug-eyed, crazy, wild hair monsters, you know. And I make it biblically grounded, and I explain where they come from a biblical historical standpoint. And that's the story I just told you there. So again, that's my story. That's why I'm a believer. That's what I do. And this is where I am today. And I cover a lot more than just that topic on my channel, but that is predominantly my research and what it is and how I came to be a believer and why I talk about what I talk about. I don't think there's anybody alive today that has not experienced the demonic. It's just there's different degrees to what level they're willing to talk about it, because many people don't admit it, that they've had a demonic experience because they're scared their friends and family will call them crazy and disown them, or they'll lose their jobs, or they won't be taken seriously anymore. But I don't care about any of that. I'm telling you right now, it's real. And if you have encountered them or you're having problems with them, you can cast them out through the authority in the name of Jesus Christ. Just, it's that simple. You don't need anything else. You don't need a church or an exorcist to come along and throw holy water on you and all that ritual nonsense that religion has created. All you need to do is call on Jesus Christ and build your relationship with him. When the demons are gone, fill yourself with the Holy Spirit, so there's no room for them to fill you anymore. That's it. That's the answer.
Wow, man. There's so much to unpack there. You just told what I've been watching on your channel for years, but you just surmised it in like, in like 10 minutes, and I appreciate that. You just said something that's so crazy, man. That's so true. There's nobody alive, I believe this too, that hasn't had a demonic experience. Now, whether they're willing to talk about it or not, or whether they understand it to be that's different. But everybody, I do believe, has had demonic experiences. I myself, I can tell you about one that I had just very briefly. I was living in the state of Georgia. I was living in the city of Atlanta. I was at my father's house, and my father, he's a pastor, and his wife is what's called a prophetess. I don't know if you're familiar with that terminology, but basically it's where, God told me to tell you, those kind of people, you know what I mean? So one day my relationship with Jesus was kind of similar to you, as far as I did everything else to get the answer instead of trying Jesus. This was my first time really, really trying Jesus. So anyways, I had been abstaining from masturbation, from sex, from watching I've been fasting for a while now. I was sober, and like you said, I guess they pick the sober times to show you the most craziest stuff. And then when you're inebriated, you don't really see none of this type of stuff. So anyways, one night I had probably for 2 or 3 nights in a row, I had like some weird, very lucid type of dreams, nightmares, and couldn't really make them out. But then another day, I was kind of in that in-between state of waking up and still being asleep. I opened my eyes, and to the right of me, where's this, I can only describe it like the Hobbit or something like that. Like a druid type of being, had really dark robes on, and its skin was very, kind of had a thin wrist like mine, but way thinner, way more skinny. And then its skin was like, I want to say white, but it wasn't white, dog. It wasn't white, man. It was dead. That's the best way I can describe it. It was very pale and grayish, very pale gray, but I couldn't see his face or anything like that. I couldn't see the face. It had a big old hood, and it was just sitting there, and it was just sitting there looking at me. And I didn't tell that story to everybody because, like you said, I kind of want people to like me, And, I don't want to, I don't want to, I'm going to grab my charger real quick. I don't want to come off as, crazy or weird or anything like that. But it happened, man. And I saw what I saw. And when I saw it, I didn't get scared or anything like that. I was kind of more so like, oh man, you're mad because you don't have a grip on me anymore like you used to. So you're just kind of like showing up. Like that's the vibe I got from it. And like I just went back to sleep. Like, most people would have got up and screamed or whatever like that. But I'm kind of, I don't know. I think we're similar in the instance of I have been having kind of psychedelic experiences my whole life. So that kind of like didn't scare me. That's the first time I ever saw something physically. But that didn't scare me. It was just more like, oh, okay, I got you. But when I hear you describe Nephilim beings, though, I tell that story to say, what do you think? Do you think that ghoul was? I mean, it was real for me, but what do you think that ghoul was? Have you ever experienced anything like that? Yeah.
Well, there's different classes of demon and come in many shapes, forms, and sizes. When I say they all look like clowns, it's more of like a catch-all terminology to explain where we get clown costumes from. Clown costumes are just a caricature of the features these things would have had. Very wide mouths because they would have had serpentine features inherited from dragons. So from the front, it looks like they're smiling, but from the side, it's just a big long opening. They usually have big red lips because it's like a human with a lizard mixed. It's very strange. Lizards don't have lips, but humans do. Humans have small mouths, but lizards have big mouths. So you slap the two things together, you get a big lipped mouth, and it looks very odd, like a clown, big clown smile. They seem to red nose is very common actually. I don't know exactly why that's the case, but it could be just extreme rosacea because pale skinned people tend to exhibit that deficiency, that issue as they age and get older. But these things weren't white skinned like me, like peachy pink, rosy colored with a bit of ginger. They were like dead white, like paper. They were like vampiric white. You know what I mean? Like unnaturally, you would never find it in nature really, unless you're looking at a decaying dead thing type of white. Yeah. So I think that's why we get the clowns have a pale white complexion as well. They're copying these features, giant eyes, big, bulging, weird looking eyes that look wild and crazy. Just like a reptile or a lizard, they have big, bulging, round eyes too. Some of them had slit pupils, some of them probably didn't. But again, that's the same in the reptilian world and quite in a few places. So there's many snakes come in many colors and shapes and sizes. Lizards come in many colors, shapes and sizes, and so did these things. Some of them had frills around the neck like a clown ruffle. Some of them probably didn't. I think some had really long necks. Some of them had short necks. There's variation among them all. But clown features like stilts because they're a giant, or colorful clothing because reptiles have colorful skin. Wild, crazy red hair seems to be quite a common descriptor whenever you look anywhere where these things are encountered. But it can be golden hair as well, or just wild, pearlescent looking hair that shimmers in the light, because that's just, again, reptilian features. And the clown costume was created through secret societies for that specific reason. So when I talk about the Nephilim, I mean, yes, you have that class, and yes, they do tend to be pale-skinned, big mouth features, big eyes. But if they were under a robe or hiding that, they could hide that from you. They can do that in some way. Or I do think if they're in spirit form now, they can also manifest usually in a jester form. Seems to be common because it's very similar to their physical form. But I think they could probably have some kind of shape-shifting capacity now, especially like a shadow form. They can just create silhouettes that like anything, because our vision's very blurry in the physical realm. When we try and see figures in the spiritual, it might come across as a shadow rather than the psychedelic DMT looking thing you'd see if you just took a hit of DMT, we just vaguely see shadows in our sober form. I think that can happen too. But then outside of the Nephilim, I think there are other classes of entities that are demons that are not half angel, half human hybrids, but people who mutated themselves on the earth at one point. They took it upon themselves to mix themselves with animals and other things and, create hybrid chimeric creatures like mermaids, half human, half fish, centaur, you know what I mean? A bull human, or a horse human, Sagittarius, for example, with his bow and arrow and a horse body. Like there are examples throughout history of these mythological creatures we find where it's like a half animal, half human hybrid. But even today in the modern cryptid phenomena, you're like Mothman, for example, these these are the remnants, I think, of these people who genetically engineered themselves just before the flood. And that's talked about in the book of Jasher. And it's kind of, it was mankind's attempt to be like Nephilim, to be better, stronger, faster in a world that's horrible and corrupt and dangerous. It's hardly surprising it happened in the end, because everyone was corrupt and evil by that point, looking to further their own dominion, you know. So that happened a lot. And you got like harpies, bird women, you know, flying around. And I think when these humans or X-Men, mutants, they used to be men, die, I think they also suffer the same consequences as the Nephilim. They're stuck on Earth. And their soul is no longer compatible to get to heaven. They have corrupted themselves, their body, which in turn corrupts the soul, and it's no longer in the image of God. Therefore, it's no longer, it's like the code is now, it's for a different operating system. It can't get into heaven anymore. You know, it's just, there's no compatibility there. And I've theorized maybe that's the unforgivable sin, like blaspheming the Holy Spirit, closing your door to it completely and making your vessel no longer compatible with God in any way, shape, or form. And I think those people do see these type of creatures when they have these experiences like you described. So I imagine that's where they came from, and that's where they are, and that's why there's so much variety in what you see. Other than those, there's also this other entity that everyone sees called the Hat Man, and this one's a really common one. And there was a book written about it. I've got it. Here we go. This was written by somebody called Heidi Hollis years ago when this was published. Don't think she's put a date on it necessarily, but I think I got this in like 2016 or something like that, because I had a vision, 2014 this was published. So I had a vision, a nightmare actually, a dream, where this entity came to me walking over the horizon like this, literally like this, coming towards me. And he did like this, he had like a purple pimp outfit on with a cane, my version, but the big wide brimmed hat. Multicolored colors and ribbons just bursting out from behind him, you know, very psychedelic Morris Dancer looking dude, you know. But his face was covered. All I saw was glowing eyes coming at me, like shadowy, all hidden under his lapels and everything. You know? And I just ran the other way in the dream. But he had made a phone call to me before he turned up in the dream, saying, "Don't think I forgot about our previous conversation. I'm coming for you now." And it implied to me like I'd made a deal with it and it was coming to collect in some way, you know. And maybe this is when I was going through my transformative period in life, where I was being born again and leaving the old life behind and becoming sober, you know. So I think it was like, oh, okay, well, you're not getting away from me that easily. You owe me something. It was like that's what it felt like in hindsight, you know what I mean? This thing was coming at me and I tried to run and it was coming at me faster and faster and I couldn't get away. And I thought I was about to die, but I managed to like wrench myself awake before it got me, you know. Screaming and sweating and the rest of it. But this thing was evil, like pure evil. It had nothing good to offer me. It was bad. It was a bad time.
What that sounds like? Pardon me. It sounds like Papa Legba. You ever heard of him?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Papa Legba, Baron Semedi, very similar to from the Iwas of the Haitian Voda, which is from African Vodan. Yeah, it's all connected, and I think they're channeling the same spirit when they dress that way and smoke the cigars and drink the rum and all the rest of it, you know. But the weird thing is, I had no concept of this character when I had this dream. I'd never heard of him. There was nothing to do. It was not even a concept in my mind. So I went out seeking answers, and I discovered millions of people have seen this guy. It's like a uniform experience. It's horrible every time. And this book is literally somebody who compiled all those experiences. You know what I mean? I was like reading this, like, what the hell? This is nuts. This is crazy. Like, I was still coming to terms with the new world I was discovering that existed around me by this point, so I was a bit like blown away by it. Now it's just a Tuesday afternoon to me to talk about these things. But then it was like, this is crazy. Like I didn't know about this guy. I've never seen this thing before. Turns out a lot of people have. So that shared experience tells me this is real, even more real. It wasn't just a dream. You know, this entity, whoever he is something powerful amongst the many other demons that exist. I feel like he's like the tax collector of the spirit world. He comes to collect what he's owed. You know what I mean? He's like the lawyer of the spirit world. He deals with contracts and things like this, soul contracts, and he makes sure people follow the rules or something. He's like he felt very clinical and legalistic and to the point. You know, he wasn't like a messy, crazy demon just going wild. this guy could think. That's what it felt like to me. Like it was a really horrible time, and I felt like I can imagine that's what it feels like when the law's coming after you in real life. You know what I mean? It's what it feels like, and you're on the run. But it was a demon. It had no real authority, and when I understood that, and obviously I rebuked these things in the name of Jesus that night when I almost was killed, and kind of they've fled from me ever since. And I've had the odd moment here and there, but as long as you pray and fast and focus on the word, they stay away. And so we have an answer, we have a solution. It's not all hopeless. These things are actually defeated and weak and have no authority unless we give it to them and believe that they have that power and authority. And that's how the legal system works. We give it power by following its systems and rules. And Satan has his kingdom on it and his systems and rules. But all of that is null and void when Christ was sacrificed and resurrected from the dead and took the keys to hell himself and conquered death. None of it means anything anymore. But Satan pretends he still has the power and the authority, but he doesn't. He did have a lot of power and authority before Christ turned up and did that sacrifice, but now he doesn't. Now it's all empty and hollow and worthless. And I think people like me, our job is to make people realize this and give them that authority back and make them citizens of the kingdom of heaven, not slaves to the systems and kingdoms of the earth, which is the devil's domain, So that's my view on all that. So there's my experience with all the types of demons I understand exist, and it doesn't really matter what size or shape they come in or how powerful they bluster themselves to be. They don't have any power at all. Illusion is smoke and mirror, and that's it. That's my take.
I appreciate that take. You know what I was thinking about when you were saying that? I was thinking about a passage in the Bible where it says that Satan rolls around like a lion looking to see who he can kill, eat, and destroy. And I've been thinking about that. And again, your channel specifically made me correlate, like, hold on, maybe there's more to the context of, like, maybe, no, you're actually talking about he does walk around because, like, these Nephilim, these beings, they're mixed with all types of animal DNA and stuff like that. Maybe these beings actually used to roam around like beasts, like lions, looking to see who they could kill, eat, and devour. And then I also kind of correlated, like, maybe since they can't do that in the physical anymore, the way that they do that is in the spiritual realm, or I don't know what you would classify the fractal universe as, if you would classify that as a spiritual realm. But I'm saying though that these beings, since they can't walk around anymore, that's what they do. They go around looking to see, as long as they got you. Like, for example, they had, when they had you, you didn't see any of that stuff. And then when they didn't have you anymore, you start seeing this stuff. Same thing with me. When they had me, I never experienced any type of, I had dreams and stuff, but I never saw a physical entity like that, So
yeah, it's like if I can't have you, nobody can type of attitude. That's how they see it, Yeah.
And I'm very I'm not into that. So when I saw my demon, I'm like, you know what, dude, I'm I'm cool separating from you, dude. But
good.
Can you do you draw comparisons with that scripture, with that verse? Do you relate it like that? Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, well. First of all, walking around like a lion, it's a direct antithesis to the Lion of Judah. That Jesus Christ, the one who protects the lambs. And I feel like that parallel is that, well, he wanders around like a roaring lion, making himself out to be as God, but all he's going to do is steal, kill, and destroy. There's that as well. And I think there may have been a literal chimera lion man hybrid at one point. The lion men of Moab is a famous example in the Bible, who even fought for Israel at one point. So there's examples in the Bible of chimera humans throughout history. And you could say they are like a form of Satan, an adversary, which is all Satan is a title for. It means adversary, So it's kind of, you could see that parallel too. I think the Bible can be interpreted well in many ways, and that passage definitely speaks true to me. I feel like it's also explaining that, look, he wanders around seeking whom he may devour. Now, we all know to avoid a lion, you don't go near those things because it's probably going to get, it's best just to keep your distance, right? And stay armed while you're at it. If you do have to be in the vicinity in the land, you shouldn't be there anyway because they're very territorial. But at the same time, it's kind of, if you are going to be there, have the right defense, have a vehicle to get away quickly, have a weapon for what it's worth. Make sure the grain of that bullet's strong enough to put that thing down, because it's not going to stop just because you plink at it with a few shells from a 9mm. You know what I mean? These things like are relentless. So it's kind of it's a warning more than anything. That passage, it's kind of stay away from Satan. And how do we do that? Well, sin welcomes him into your life, and we're supposed to put on the full armor of God. We're supposed to repent from our former life and try our best to move forward and walk upright in the image of God and how he intended you to live. Now we fall short of that. We often fall off the path, we have to get back on, and we have grace and forgiveness for that, thank God, and that's the thing. You'll forget his sacrifice forgave you of all these sins, past, present, and future. But if you tempt Satan, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, it's kind of, if you think you can go around still living a life of sexual immorality and promiscuity and just sleeping around while also having Christ's sacrifice on your back, sure, you might be saved, you might still get into heaven, but you might suffer some horrible, painful STDs along the way and have a shitty life along the way to heaven. Why do that? You're not saved from the consequences of sin. On earth necessarily. You're just saved from the eternal consequences of sin, which is hell and destruction and distance from God in death. But there's still consequences to doing bad things on earth while you're in the system. So, maybe don't lie and cheat and steal while being a born-again Christian. Maybe don't go out there and do those horrible things. Maybe don't be a usurer, and put interest on everything and make everyone's life a miserable hellhole while you're at it. Maybe do things that are better for people rather than worse. Maybe don't go out there and be a drug addict anymore. Maybe try and get sober, because there's consequences. You'll die early. You'll suffer lung cancer, or you'll have terrible things happen to you because of that. You might alienate friends and family and live a loneful, miserable life before you get to heaven, because you're saved by the blood of Christ. Sin brings the roaring lion into your life, and he will devour you if you allow it. I think that's the message of that verse from my perspective. Now, it's not the grace of God is so wonderful that it's not the stopping to sin that saves you. It's just Christ's sacrifice alone that saves you. And thank God for that, because no sin is worse than the other in God's eyes. It doesn't matter what you do. You can't be super saved. You're either saved or you're not, It's kind of whatever your sin is, it's all deplorable to God. You can't say, well, he murdered somebody. I didn't do anything like that. He's worse than me. It's kind of sure, he killed somebody. So did Paul. He turned from his ways. He never murdered anybody ever again, and he lived for Christ. And it's kind of, it doesn't matter how bad you have sinned. You can always be saved and repent and turn from your ways. And, that's wonderful. But the repenting and the turning from your ways and not sinning anymore, it's not the thing that's saving. That's not it. And I think we have to get that across as well, because a lot of people say, oh, it's a works-based faith you've got. And it's not. The works will not get you there. It's just what Christ did that gets you there. But while you are still here living a life, don't waste it. Yeah, don't waste it. And try your best to be an example to the world that you don't have to do what the world demands you to do, which is sin, usually, or whatever, in varying degrees and form, whatever that is. Be different from the world. Live in the world, but not of the world. Set yourself apart as much as you can as an example to others that it is possible. And the rewards are great in this life and the next for doing that. But if you wanted to, you could just believe in Jesus Christ and his word and then do nothing and continue to be addicted to things and lie to people, and you'll still get saved in the end. You'll still get into heaven. But at the same time, it's kind of, well, your life here would have been misery along the way. And you tend to find the fruits of the Spirit. When people are filled with the Holy Spirit, they tend to do good works. I'm not putting the horse before the cart here, saying, if you're not doing good works, that means you must not be saved. I'm not saying that, okay? You can be saved and do nothing. You can. That happens. Probably does happen plenty of times, But you tend, on average, to find that when people are filled with the Holy Spirit, you can't help but help people. You cannot help it. It drives you. You cannot help but change and be born again and turn away from your addictions, like in my case. You don't have a choice. You don't care. You've changed. Your perspective has changed. You don't get the pleasure from it anymore. It just happens. It's an amazing transformative experience, But you can have all those amazing transformative experiences and say, yeah, but I'm still going to carry on anyway. You can do that, okay? That will happen, and it probably does happen. But that's why we needed the grace and the forgiveness and the covering of Jesus anyway, because we are like that. We're kind of we're really bad, rotten to the core. We're sinners by nature, and we struggle to get out that. because of our flesh. Our flesh is so wicked, you know. The desires that take over us, like the baser instincts that take over, it's not easy for us, and God knows that. That's why we have that grace. That's why we have that forgiveness of sins through Christ. That's why he took it all on him. So when God looks at us, he doesn't see us. He sees his son, spotless and perfect. Christ covers you in that moment, in that courtroom. You know, he's your lawyer on your side, covering you. You know, but the devil's also going to be there accusing you as well. And,
That's a great point. And man, I appreciate this. Is this is kind of like a dream come true for me as far as in this content space. Having somebody like you on this platform, I'm very grateful for it. And everything you're saying is kind of like, wow, man. I've been watching you say this for years now, and this is awesome, man. But the last thing that I kind of want to end on
Sure.
is what do you think? What do you think is the purpose then of spiritual warfare, and how do these beings attack people who are already saved? So what's the purpose behind the spiritual warfare, and then why do these beings attack people that's already saved?
Well, I think the ultimate purpose of spiritual warfare is a testimony to God's existence and the power of Jesus. That's why God allows it. Whenever you have a demon problem, God will allow it and allow you to push you to the limits, because your sin invited them in to begin with. It's the consequences of your own action. It's the win stupid prizes thing all over again, you know? And that desperation.
The devil is a lie. He cut out. The devil is a lie. Right when he cooking. Win stupid prizes. Right when he cooking. Right when he cooking. Make sure y'all, I appreciate all of y'all being here. For those of y'all that's going to be watching this back, this was the original guest that I was supposed to have. Make sure y'all like, comment, share, subscribe, because this is a real good topic and a place that we're at right now, where we're talking about spiritual warfare, the power and blood of Jesus Christ and his sacrifice, and how we're saved through grace. I mean, guys, this is everything. This is the epitome of what I've been talking to y'all about, and how it relates to spiritual warfare and the practices that we've been accustomed to, that kind of like that got us into this a state of worshiping the demonic. You know, I think his phone might have died, or something might have died. Something might have happened. But man, y'all don't understand. Like, this is a dream come true for me again in this content space, is because I've been watching that guy for years, and understanding the conspiracy of the Nephilim look like clowns, and why people have, and where our standards for worship come from, where our standards for beauty come from, and then overall, where do we get these things from society? Like, how do we get these practices, these belief systems? Like, where do these things come from? Like, what makes us operate the way that we do? You know what I'm saying? Oh man, this is like, for y'all to understand, y'all, like, I can't even express to y'all how happy I am. Like, cause I mean, I feel it, but it's like more so, it's like, I know I'm in this space of just like grinding, man. I'm in this grind space, bro. Like, man, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, but all it does is testify to the power of Jesus Christ. That is a perfect antidote right there. Play stupid games, get stupid prizes. But the reason for your spiritual warfare is a testimony or a testament to the power and blood and love of Jesus Christ. That is a perfect point. That's a perfect point right there. That's a perfect point right there. The reason that we go through the spiritual warfare, especially as children of the Most High, is because we are here. We're here to use that as a testimony of the power and blood of Jesus Christ. Jesus. Yo. So of course we got to go through things. One, because our sin opens the doorway for these things to even happen in the get-go. Sin is the thing that opens up the doorway. Your promiscuity, your sins of your past. Yeah, he will throw them into the sea of forgetfulness, but you don't forget. That's why you gotta play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Yo, I love this conversation right here. I try to hop back on. No worries, man. Man, no worries. He's gonna try to hop back on, guys. So I'm gonna give him till 50. Whoa, bro, you don't understand, bro. My dreams are like coming true right before my eyes, bro. Like, bro, man, life has been lifing for me lately, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to you. Yeah. But I did kind of want to touch a little bit. I mean, I got these images pulled up. I did kind of want to touch on like how he said it all. Like he surmised it all. Like the reason that we have these standards of beauty and stuff like that is because we have been in cured and indoctrinated in seraphim worship and serpent worship. You know what I'm saying? So our standards of beauty, the way that we worship, the way that we celebrate each other is all rooted in serpent worship. It is. It's all rooted in serpent worship. You know? Wow. This is crazy, bro. Like I'm lost for words. The reason that we're like this is because all of our man, it's all rooted in serpent worship. We've been worshiping the serpent without us knowing since time immemorial. That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. But I'm gonna give it to 50. What's going on, tribe? Oh, I appreciate all of y'all being here. Again, I know I didn't shout y'all out as y'all was getting in and commenting and stuff like that there. But I was just so enthralled. I was just so tuned in to the conversation by the gentleman that we have on here, understanding conspiracy, because what he's talking about is everything that I care about. All I care about is spiritual warfare, guys. That's literally all I work. Everything that I talk about to y'all, whether it be celebrities, whether it be myself, whether it be political thing, I always try to tie it back to spiritual warfare because it all is connected. The reason that we act the way that we act is from forces unseen and from decisions that we make personally. The reason that you're having such hard spiritual warfare right now, myself included, is because of decisions that led you up to this point. It's true, man. It's true. That's very true. Everything happens in the spirit before the physical. And again, the reason that we run into issues, whether those be nightmares, whether those be whatever the case may be, the reason that we do that is because of our sin that we've been living in. Now, again, I just said it, but I'm gonna say it again. Again, your sins will be thrown and cast away into the sea of forgetfulness. We know that. That's true. Oh, he's back. He's back, guys. We know that. That's true. All right.
Okay,
Got you back.
I'm
Don't
back.
worry, man. Doing it on this phone, it happens like that, especially when you're it's called cooking. You were cooking, dog, so you couldn't even see your battery level.
Yeah. Well, I had it plugged in, but clearly the wire I'm using is just a piece of crap. So I've robbed my wife's super fast charging wire, and this should keep it going. I'm on 2%. I hope it'll just stay there as we talk.
Oh, but no,
I'll finish.
It's awesome. And if you cut off again too, man, we appreciate you being here again. For those of y'all that's just now joining in, this gentleman is he's really, for me, he's at the top of the mountain in relation to this conspiracy space. His channel's called Understanding Conspiracy. He talks about spiritual warfare in relation to the gods of old, the kings of old, the Nephilim, stuff like that, the fractal universe, where we get standards of beauty from. So I did kind of pull up these. I wanted to show you this because you reason we get kind of our relation to what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, that's one example. I mean, to be honest, the geishas themselves, you could argue that they pale the skin up because that's a sign of wealth, because they are working in the fields getting sunburns. It's so the paler your skin is, the richer you are, is kind of how they see that, I think. Am I still with you, or have you frozen now? Is it your turn to cut out? You still with me? I think he's cut out, or I've cut out. It's like his phone has also died. If you guys are with me, yeah, I run a channel called Understanding Conspiracy. And I was invited on here just to share my work and what I do. I think he's been following me for a while. The stuff I talk about is a little bit strange, a little bit odd. I'll admit it is a strange topic. I mean, the Nephilim like clown sounds insane on the surface, but I do know that. And like I said, he has probably tried to share with you guys some examples of what it is I do. Essentially, what I do is I look around and look at cultures all around the earth. So it's like more of an anthropological study more than anything, which is just a study of people. And I look at the cultures around the earth and try and find the most ancient rituals, the most ancient within each continent, within each tribe and village and country, you know, the oldest traditions. And usually you find they have this thing where they dress in a certain way and do a crazy dance and often take drugs as well, for the sole purpose of channeling the spirits of the dead. That seems to be what they're doing. So this is called ancestor spirit worship. And the reason they do this ancestor spirit worship is because they're trying to be embodied by the spirits. And usually they want to get something from the spirit, be it like a strength or a skill or knowledge or wealth or power or something like this. It's a transactional thing. That's why they do this. Welcome back. I'm just explaining to your audience. I kept it going about what I do and kind of answering your question a bit more there. So when it comes to the things like the geishas, like you showed me, you find these old traditions do often white up the skin for some reason. It is a running thread throughout every culture, not just the Japanese. Now, the geishas themselves are entertainers. They're kind of like the Japanese version of a jester. Their job is to entertain rich and wealthy, influential people. And they are trained heavily in the Tao and the way of like flow. So they're very funny, witty conversationalists and fun to have around at parties. And the reason they tend to white up the skin is because it represents wealth and beauty in their culture, because rich people, powerful people don't work in the fields getting sunburned, so they tend to have paler skin. So that's kind of what they're going for there. That's what they say. But if you look at the design of this with the black and white patterned strip they put around their belly as well, the blackening of the teeth, they make their hair out to be much larger, so it looks like they have a huge head as well. These are all Nephilim features: elongated skulls, multicolored patterned clothing, white skin. So you have to actually question the narrative sometimes. Now, they'll tell you it's because it's about being rich and not getting sunburnt. But then all these other cultures around the earth, they'll tell you the reason they have people dressing like this is because it represents something spiritual that's powerful that they want to mimic. They want to be like in some way. And a lot of these other cultures will say, oh, we dress this way because we want the spirit of this entity to come into our body. So we dress like the thing to channel the thing. And if we dress like something that looks this way in the spirit realm, then we're mirroring that thing in the spirit realm, which creates a portal from the physical to the spiritual, a channel which they can get through into our body that now looks like them and represents them. So that's well understood. That's actually normal practice for a lot of cultures all over the earth. There's like hundreds of them, absolutely hundreds of these cultures that do this. I mean, India is quite common and popular. They have a tradition called the Theyyam, for example, in India. And it's far older even than Hinduism, they claim, which is, that sounds absurd because Hinduism is ancient, you know, very old. But they say, this goes way before Hinduism. And they say they dress this way to channel the spirits, because to get stuff from it. They want information and knowledge, basically. And the tribe will do it every year. And they dress in these crazy looking outfits that give them like tusked fangs, red polka dots all over the face with white skin, you know, massive elaborate golden jeweled headdresses, make themselves androgynous as well in many ways. Fake breasts get put on. And they have this elaborate fire ritual. And then the guy dressed this way, there's one guy who does it, gets possessed by a spirit. And then all the tribe run around to him and give it stuff, a chicken. And the guy will literally eat the head off a live chicken and drink the blood straight out of its neck in front of everybody. Because it's not the man anymore. It's the demon who wants that thing. That's what they want a body to do, to taste that blood again, for example. And the people know it, so they give it its favorite things. It partakes in all of them, and once it's happy, and it's like, finally, what do you want? That's what it does. What do you want for this, you know? Because you have to give the people something, so they'll keep doing it. So you can keep coming back and keep, it's a deal, it's a win-win, you know. I'll give you power, you give me this every year. You know, you give me this more often. And you'll find today in the West, I think they're popularizing this type of dress, and they try and make more and more people look like a clown, and work clown-like features, because you create channels to the entities in the spirit realm the more people you get dressing that way. And I know it sounds crazy, but it's perfectly well understood yearly practices. These are the cultures I just mentioned. They'll tell you that's what they're doing. And just because we don't know that in the West doesn't mean we're like immune to the consequences of dressing that way. But we don't think the clown costume is serious. We don't see it as dangerous. We think it's a bit of fun for the kids. But when you look at all these other cultures I've explored on my channel, that's how they dress. It's just like a clown by our standards. And they're doing it to channel the spirits of the Nephilim. They're not doing it for any other purpose. So when we dress that way here in the West, we have to be extremely careful with what we're actually opening ourselves up to. And I think they're making the people dress this way today. I think they're pushing it on people. I think they want people dressing that way for Halloween more and more often as well. So there's a yearly ritual where more spirits can come back into the physical realm and enjoy the gluttony and the sex and the candy or the alcohol or whatever it is, the time of excess and partying and mischief, they call it, where people go out and destroy things and riot. I think that's why this happens at these times of year, because the costumes you wear actually matter. It's just in the West, we don't believe in spirits. They're not really superstition. It's silly, but the consequences of wearing those costumes is the same consequences of these tribes who very much know it's real and believe in it. And that's kind of what I do. And that's what I explore on the channel. And that's what I've documented. And yeah, it goes deep. It goes very, very deep. And just to get back to you.
Yeah, no, man. I appreciate you for hanging around, man. I actually, when I came back on, I heard you talking, but I couldn't see you. So I was like, am I watching the pre-record? I didn't know what was going on. But this is cool. You know what I was thinking about when you just said that? I was thinking about there was this, especially on the West, probably where you're from too. There was a real craze like about a year and a half, 2 years ago, with the big old red boot. I don't know if you remember that. The big red boots.
Yeah.
Yeah. They look like Astro Boy boots. They're so ridiculous and they're so. But let's not. I mean, we can talk about the way that they look. But let's just talk about the actual creators of them, who I think are Sacramento, California based. And they themselves tell you that the way that they came about that idea, because they're from a company called, oh man. Anyways, they make limited edition stuff. Like they're the same company that made the Little Nas X Nike shoes with the blood that was on the bottom of the sole. They're the same company that produced that type of stuff. So they make limited edition, really type of demonic stuff. Anyways, the way that they say that they came up with the big red boots was that they all got into a circle and they prayed over a pentagram. They say this. It's not a conspiracy. They say this. So it's what you're saying is not all at all far-fetched. Again, just because we don't think it's true, we are the consumer. Again, they don't even call us people anymore. We're the consumer. So what we think is real or is normal is actually so far from reality that it's kind of scary.
Oh yeah, they're definitely trying to get us to dress in more and more outlandish, crazy, colorful clothing. Slowly. I mean, even in 2023, French catwalk fashion, Elle Fashion Week, where all the top designers are involved, had people dressing in clowncore costumes on the catwalks. That was the in thing, and that was almost 3 years ago. But what you find on the catwalks eventually trickles down into the outlets eventually, because it's the fashion of the time. And it's usually avant-garde when it's on the catwalk. It's ahead of its time. So coming down the pipeline to a gap near you is probably going to be something like that. You know what I mean? It's something polka dots and stripes and flares and clown frills and odd things like that, and they have to normalize it slowly. But eventually, I think what they want is those looking like something out of the Hunger Games in the Capitol, where everyone was colorful and crazy and was dressed. Basically, everyone looked like a clown. Everybody looked like a clown, and that was what they're aiming at, because it opens up more channels and makes the spirit realm and the physical realm more connected. Because we are, as I mentioned at the start, infested with these parasitical demons who are looking for a body, and the elite are making it easy for them by using this one simple tactic, costume. And it's so simple. We don't even think about it here because we don't believe that kind of stuff. But it really matters. Like how you dress matters, because the spirit world, as we call it, or the fractal realm, and the physical realm are not separate from one another. They're the same place. It's just two sides of the same coin. They're inseparable. You can't have a spirit realm without the physical realm. You can't have a physical realm without the spirit realm. What happens here happens there, and what happens there happens here. So when you dress like something in what we call the physical, you are sending out a message or a calling card or a signal, a channel to the thing that's right next to you that looks the same. And the thing that looks closest to that image you're creating, you're giving it a way in, a way through into this world, into a body, and that's it. That's what you're doing there. And it's like a spiritual law. It's immutable. So ignorance of the law doesn't make you immune to the law. But that's the rules we play by. It's the rules they play by. Your intention doesn't matter, I'm afraid, when it comes to this type of thing. Well, I just wanted to wear the costume to entertain kids. Still gonna get demons. Like, it doesn't matter if you could have entertained the kids and then gone home, but you've let something in. It's too late. You've opened the door. You know, it's like playing with an Ouija board. It's the same principle. And the occult know this. Actually, they use it to their advantage. They know full well what that costume represents because they made the damn thing and called it a clown and made it a cult and made the public image of that thing harmless and fun and silly. But it's not harmless and fun and silly, and never was, and was never intended to be. It was created specifically by Freemasons to represent the Indian demons of Rakshasas. You know, Rakshasas of India. That's exactly where they got the inspiration for the clown costume from in 1799, and just put it on the British stages in London, and it caught on, and now it's the standard for all clown costumes going forward into the 21st century. So the origin of our clown costume, as we understand them, was literally modeled after the demons of India, which is just their version of Nephilim. So it doesn't matter what you say, it's always represented demons. I don't care if you don't feel that way. You're wrong. I've shown it. It's evidence. You know, I've documented it in the book. That costume is not a joke. It's not funny. It's not fun for the kids. We are, like you said, the reality is far weirder than what you think it is. Like, it really is like a spiritual weapon that you have to. It's used by some cultures for their own benefit. It's used in our culture to not for our benefit at all, you know, and there are people even in our culture who know what it's for and use it for their own benefit. Most musicians, you'll find, eventually end up looking like clowns because they get, and the richer and more famous they become. David Bowie is a prime example, and you got little Chappelle Roan currently making her way through the charts out of seemingly nowhere, dressing like a clown. It's because you get chosen if you look like that, because you become an idol to other people in the industry who want to be famous. And they'll think, well, if I want to be famous, I better emulate my idols who got famous. So I better start dressing the way they did. Then I'll be famous too. And that's exactly what happens. Because the people that run the industry are the satanic Illuminati elite who are looking for people like that. And they'll say, that person dresses like a clown. Music's a bit shit, but it doesn't matter. They got the look. We'll hire them. We'll make them think they're great and amazing. And we'll put them on a stage in front of millions of people. And then more people will copy them. Great. More channels being opened up. That's all it is. It's simple. And that's the game. The game to be a famous musician isn't to have talent, isn't to like do something crazy or weird necessarily. It's just dress like a psychedelic clown monster and you'll get chosen and you'll get to be famous. That's the secret. That's the big, big secret, you know. And you'll find a lot of people play into it who figure this out too. They know that. And a lot of powerful musicians end up looking that way because they realize there's benefits to doing it. You know, because they learn the game, they learn the secret. It's even in the art world. The most craziest Turner Prize winners look like clowns. Literally, they dress in the craziest color clothing you've ever seen and whites at the face. It's the best kept secret. You know? Yeah, exactly. That's a sound suit. I think we're looking at there from an artist. Is that correct? Is it Nick Shake? Nick Cave is another one who copies that and does his own thing in Britain. He claims it's from his African heritage and all this type of thing, but he's stolen a lot of imagery from European heritage as well, the wild man, and made these things he calls sound suits. But you look at the Zangbitos in Africa, like some of these like tribes, you know, in Africa, and the way they dress, and also Africa's a huge continent with many countries and different cultures. Don't get me wrong, but they all often straw is what they use. And hair, animal hair, because that's what they've got available to them. So they have these suits that are often look like that you just showed there. You know, these colorful, vibrant, flowing hair things. And they do spins and backflips and all sorts of stuff in them because they look crazy. Because when you move around in them, it looks like sound is flowing around all over the place. And, you know, Nick Cave has stolen that, put it in the gallery, and now he's rich and famous. Right? But all he's done was stole these ancestor spirit worship costumes and pretend like it's a new crazy thing. But it's not. We're just ignorant of that in the West, you know. But again, what you're really doing is you're just idolizing costumes worn by cultures who are trying to channel demons. That's what we're actually doing. You know, there's nothing else to it.
Is what's the end goal? I already have an answer myself. I'm curious as to your answer. What's the end goal for these entities and really these elites that are operating in high and wicked places? What's their end goal for this? Even if they know that they're supposed to be defeated in the end, what's their end goal? And then two, I should have asked this before, but then two, have you seen shows like Stranger Things who kind of like show a lot of these type of beasts? Do you think these shows are trying to invoke those are trying to fill us with those parasites visually?
Yeah, I mean, I think the end goal of the elite is to defeat God and let the devil win and have his own kingdom and be gods on earth with the devil at the helm. You know, that they are fully on board with the devil's agenda, and they basically want to live like kings here on earth and avoid the judgment. So they don't want to die. They want to get immortality so they can basically avoid that final judgment after death. So they can live on earth forever as kings and gods. That's the promise they've been told, you know. Do what I say and you'll be as gods. And that's what the devil told Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Eat of the apple and you'll be as gods, you know, and know good and evil. And that's the false promise that is keeping them going. They genuinely believe they'll defeat God, live forever, and get to avoid his final judgment and rule over what's left as gods and kings. That's basically what they genuinely believe. Even some of them, I think, as well, who aren't deluded, they basically think, well, I'd rather be a king on earth than a slave in hell anyway. You know what I mean? Like in heaven anyway. So some of them are just evil. They just genuinely don't care. And they are happy to steal, kill, and destroy and maim and sacrifice and murder now for material wealth and gain while they're here. And to hell with the consequences. That also exists. They just don't care. But I think a lot of them, religiously speaking, they genuinely do believe the lies they were told from the spiritual entities they've encountered, that God is evil, the devil's actually the good guy, mankind can be as God, and as long as you don't follow the programming that the evil Adonai wants to put you under, you can free yourself from his useless, horrible creation and be as gods yourselves and make your own universe and be a master of all things. And that's all Lucifer was trying to do, give you knowledge. He's the light bringer. You know, he's bringing you the gift of knowledge to free you from an evil prison keeper. And they believe it. They actually believe that. So they go ahead and do these horrible, heinous things because they actually don't think killing you is bad. They think it's a good thing. No, they do. They're in a death cult. They actually are in a death cult. They think man and woman didn't used to exist. We used to be one thing. And it's like an androgynous looking man-woman entity. And God split them, okay, into man and woman. And he made us weaker when he did that because we were no longer whole. And then when we started to reproduce because of that, because of sex and reproduction, it made the consciousness of man watered down and spread out through millions of people rather than condensed into just one entity or a few entities, which is one man, okay? And when consciousness is concentrated, you become more godlike, more powerful. Okay? So they think killing people and lowering that population makes the consciousness more condensed within fewer people, and therefore those fewer people are more powerful and godlike and supernatural. Okay? So they have justified in their own mind murdering billions is actually a net benefit for humanity as a whole in the war against God. Okay, they actually believe. Yeah, they believe that. Yeah, but obviously they'll never sacrifice themselves to make the consciousness. You know, yeah, exactly. Obviously, yeah, they're hypocrites through and through, but they've been told like you're special. You need to lead the new mankind in the new age and the new world order to you know master this world and obviously go against God and. God's only powerful if people worship him. You know what I mean? So we need to diminish all of that and get ourselves back to a state. That's why they worship the androgyne. It's quite a common thing. That's why Baphomet is a breasted goat god thing, man with a phallus. You know what I mean? It's man and woman together as one. It's kind of like what they're aiming for. That's their idea of perfection before the fall. That's what they would describe it as, you know. So they are actually in a death cult, and that's just one faction. There's many factions with many crazy beliefs in this whole system, but fundamentally they're all deluded in their own way, but they're all geared towards the same direction. Kingdom without God.
Are all of the ones that are believing in this stuff, not even, there's many that believe in that, but the ones that, you know, have, I guess, authority over humanity, the reason that they really believe this is because they trace their bloodlines back to the beginning.
Yeah, well, they think they are the descendants of the angel human hybrids, the Nephilim. They think they have angel blood in them. So that actually already makes them part divine. You know what I mean? They have that right. They have the right to rule over people because we have divinity within us from heaven. We have the angel blood in us. So some families' bloodlines do genuinely believe that too. I'm not even sure that's even true. I think that might be another lie, to be honest. They're just people who have been deceived to thinking they're special by the devil when they're not. I think that's probably more likely because I think the Nephilim were completely wiped out. You know, like, I don't think that's true. I think they like to think they're that special, but they're really not. But they believe it. And this is the world we live in. You know, even our most enlightened, illuminated elites are under a deception. Even they don't know what's really going on. You know, even they're under a delusion and a lie. But they benefit so much from the lie. Why would they question it as well? Like, they'll go along with it until the end. Maybe they're not quite actually sure or realize just what's in store for them as a consequence. You know, they don't know. They actually don't know. You'll find it's quite compartmentalized. Like, a lot of these families raise their children to replace them in such isolation and indoctrination into the satanic ritual abuse world that they think it's normal to believe these things, and they think they are told they're special, and a lot of them just believe it. They never really have they're in a bubble. They don't know what the real world's actually like or what's really going on. And they've never read the Bible because they've been told what the Bible is and God's evil and all this sort of stuff, you know. So it's they'll never be around people who can burst that bubble or show them what the world is, and they're heavily handled, so they don't encounter these things too. It's kind of, they're under a serious control situation, and it's hard to break away from those families. Death is the consequence, and they know it too. So it's kind of, there's many reasons why they follow this agenda, is all I'm saying. And it's very dark, but primarily greed and power. It's not something they're willing to sacrifice. It's not something they're willing to give up. You know, they gain a lot in material wealth doing this. And it's tough for them to turn about. It's going to be tough for them because the world has a serious grip on them, like a serious grip. And they genuinely, like, I really think a lot of them think they're the good guys. I think they genuinely think they're the good guys. Yeah, they're not bad. Like Bill Gates going around doing what he's doing, you know, like, he thinks he's a philanthropist. He thinks he's going around saving the world. You know, dumping genetically modified mosquitoes on people. Like, he genuinely thinks it's for the greater good of all things. Like, so this is not a joke. Like, it's not. Like, they're so deluded, and there's no way we can get to them to convince them otherwise. Absolutely no way. All we can do is convince the rest of the world not to go along with their agendas or plans. That's the best we can hope for. So there we go. That's that summarized. And while you're gone there, I'll loop back around to the point you were asking me at the start. Like, what's the point of the demonic stuff? You know, why does that even happen? Why is there even demons? What's their agenda? And the demonic agenda, as I was explaining before I kind of got cut off, God does allow demons to exist and to infest people because fundamentally spiritual warfare proves God's existence. All of it's a testimony to him being real and the Bible's history being real too. And usually when you've got demons, you seek solutions. And when you start to look for solutions, you find Jesus. So I think God allows it for that reason. It's explained that God gives people over who sin to their reprobate mind. He lets them live in that life. And it's kind of a see where it gets you type of thing, you know. So as I was just saying that, I'm just answering the question you asked at the start before I cut off, which is, what's the demon spiritual warfare stuff for? So I was saying, you know, God allows it because it leads to Christ when you start looking for solutions. That tends to be what it's about. So I think all of this, everything that happens on the earth, even the bad stuff, God turns for good in the end. And no matter how the evil people behave or act, or how much demons demon and do what they do, it inevitably leads people to look for solutions. And the only solution that you actually find that works is Christ. And it all leads back to the Bible every single time. So I think God will allow evil to do what evil does, because all it does is expose that he exists and he's real and they're against him. You know, so it's kind of, they can't, no matter how much these evil people and the demons work, it always backfires on them. It always does the opposite thing. It has the opposite effect every time. And they truly are like, you know, they make plans and God laughs every single time. So it's kind of like we're actually in a very good position once you realize this. Fear is the only thing that actually keeps us under control. The fear that they actually have power and authority over us. The fear that they actually can do anything or are in control. The truth is they're not. God is in control all the time. And there's never a point where he is not. And I find it's through the suffering that I have grown more. And I have found my faith in his strength. And it's through the pain, it's through the demonic attacks that's made me believe and have faith in Christ more so than ever. And God will use those trials and those tribulations, but he'll always be there with you. He'll allow it. He'll test to see if you're genuine as well, you know. And it's a Job situation. He'll send bad things into your life because your faith is only valuable when tested against bad times. You know what I mean? Like, it's only useful. Your moral standing and who you are and what your principles really are only show when there's a problem and when you have to use them and stand by them. Okay. So things will happen. Like, for example, you know, the COVID thing, everyone was forced to take the thing, weren't they? You know, in some way, shape or form, through threat of losing your life or your job or your livelihood. Well, it was hard to say no then. And many Christians didn't say no. You know, so you look at it all, now it's all kind of blown over and it's kind of a thing of the past now. And it's kind of like, you could have said no and there wouldn't actually have been any consequences. Really. That's what we've discovered now. You know, it's all coming out that actually things are going quite bad for those who did take it. And all those companies who fired people have lost their cases and rehired them, and or it never really got that bad to begin with, you know. And you find that was the point all along. It's kind of, you can say no. You can say no. And in the moment, it's only fear that's making you capitulate. That's all it actually was. And that's all they've got. Fear of the consequences. You know, well, to hell with the consequences. With God on your side, what's the problem? I mean, you need to fear God, not man. If you got the fear of God down, the one that can actually really kill you and destroy the soul and the body, who else is there to fear? You know, that's why a healthy fear of God is necessary. You know, and I think God will send tests in people's lives and even into humanity collectively. And all of it is just a testimony to him. So I think that's why any of this happens. I think that's why there even are demons still allowed to roam. I think that's why it allowed them to remain on the earth. Because in spite of all of their efforts, all it does is make people go further and closer to him and cleave to him. And at the end of all of this, after judgment, it's a new heaven and earth. So that means a cleansing of the parasites. No more demons on earth anymore. All of them gone, burnt up in the lake of fire, annihilated, disappeared, along with Satan, the false prophet, the beast, all of it gone, reset. Earth no longer parasitically infested with monsters, as it should be. Mankind saved with an understanding of God's existence, left to do what they should have done from the beginning. Back to Eden, you know, back to perfection, back to as it was. But without this journey, would we appreciate it? Would we know what we had if we hadn't had something to compare it to prior? You know, all these things are human conditions, this duality situation. We need to know what hell feels like to appreciate heaven. Okay? And God knows that. All right? And it's not that it's necessary from his perspective, but from our perspective, it is, because we're limited in our scope. We are not God. He understands that we need the journey. Okay, so that I think that's why he allows all this. That's why there are bad things, because without that, you would never grow. Without pushback, you'd never learn. You know, because and the devil lays out a world for you that's easy. That's what he does. He dopamines you up with pleasure and hits of whatever it is that you're after, and vice and sin. So you just go through life never thinking, never feeling, never having to worry. coasting through, you know. The devil will give you an easy life on earth, a very easy life. As soon as you ask God to come into your life, that goes away. Okay?
That's a good point right there, man.
Takes it away straight away. Honestly, he does. And there's a good reason for that. Because you were never growing. You were never becoming to your full potential when everything was handed to you and was easy. That's the truth, you know. And look, as I say, people don't have it bad. Okay? This is the problem. What I'm saying is you can have it terrible, but you'll distract yourself with things and not make it better. That's what the devil offers you. Okay? A way out that isn't through Christ, but through drugs, alcohol, sex, pleasure, TV, food, whatever it is. You know, but God will say, confront you. Oh, that pleasure disappears because you no longer crave it anymore and you don't have the desire for it. And what you're left with is the mess. Clean it up.
You just look
Yeah.
at you.
Clean it up. You know, you've got nothing else to do. And that's what it truly is, you know, and most people never bother to confront those things or make their lives better or do the work necessary to improve because the devil distracts them and makes it easy to just ignore those problems. God takes that away. And it seems horrible at first. It seems so awful and cruel. And it's like, why? Like, why am I going to suffer through all this now? But at the end of it all, once you do the work, and because there's nothing else to do, you'll find it was the best thing that ever happened to you. And thank God for those trials and tribulations and those confrontations of the reality of the world you've created for yourself and what you have to live in. And once you've sorted yourself out, maybe then you can start manifesting the kingdom on earth too. And start going out there and helping other people too. And none of that will begin. None of that journey begins of self-transformation unless you give it to God. Give yourself to God and say, what you want me to do. Okay, that's it. That's all you've really got to do. And yeah, it's not easy. I'm not promising sunshine and lollipops, you know. I'm not at all. It's a journey. It's a painful one.
In fact, you can anticipate the opposite of sunshine and lollipops. Expect
trials and tribulations. Yeah.
to the 100th degree. Man, this is probably the best show I've ever had, guys. I appreciate all you guys being here. Make sure you guys like, comment, share, subscribe. We're talking about spiritual warfare. We're talking about everything that's really specific to you guys and specific to us too. This is really when it all boils down to. I got to quote the book of Ephesians a little bit. Everything else is meaningless except developing a relationship with God. So, and that's kind of like been what we've been talking about in this whole thing, how we get distracted by this demonic presence. And we got an expert on here, man, and I appreciate your time. I'm not sure how you are on time, but I did want to wrap up with one more kind of point.
Sure.
I wanted to ask, how do you feel about, so this is a brief excerpt. My journey into this occult realm kind of started when I was like 16, 17. I read this book. I was living in the Philippines and I read this book by David Icke, the first book that I ever purchased myself. And the book was called Children of the Matrix. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. I read it from cover. I bought it I had it on PDF form. But anyways, I read it from front to back. And it was the first book that I ever read, you know, that I purchased myself that I was actually interested in going to get. Do you think that is people walking around here basically with human suits on? And then two, what do you think about David Icke? Do you think that he's doing the Lord's work? And if so, why is he kind of like allowed to move around so freely? I mean, you might not be able to answer that last part, but yeah, what do you think about everything else I just said?
Well, I don't know David Icke personally. He was a huge part of my early studies myself when I first was waking up in the New Age realm. You know, I listened to all of his like 8-hour-long lectures. You know what I mean? You remember those old things? Like, and I heard it all. I heard him out, and he has a lot of good information about the control structure. He really does. Like, he does lay out exactly how it is. But he seems to be of the New Age theosophist thought. All of his information was channeled by an entity. He'll tell you that told him these things. And it's all come from an entity. That's how he knows all this stuff.
You know what? He does say that. Jesus, dude.
Yeah. He explains that to you. So I And you have to understand the Theosophical Society, where a lot of this New Age thought comes into the modern age from like the 19th century, quite a long time, or 1800 stuff to like early 20th century stuff. They believe that the hierarchy will be externalized before the coming of the great teacher, which is the Antichrist. It's Lucifer. They're basically talking about that. Alice Bailey, who kind of powered this thought into the modern era more so and made a lot of books about this. She was like a student of Helena Blavatsky, who started this Theosophical Society. David Icke's thoughts and his explaining of what's really going on in the world is the externalization of the hierarchy. It's letting you know about the control structure, the public, in a drip feed fashion. So the truth movement, from David Icke's perspective, he's doing his job, whether he knows it or not. He might genuinely believe what he's doing is good for the consciousness of mankind, but the entity that came to him and told him to do this, I don't think has good intentions. David Icke might. Okay, he might be completely deluded and not realize he's being played. But the whole point of the New Age theosophical thought, which is light, energy, consciousness, a world teacher coming from space in some way to elevate mankind's consciousness to the fifth dimension, what we truly are. We are just consciousness. David Icke's talking points, and there's an archon, evil, parasitical force on Earth keeping us down, and we need to free ourselves from the cycles and all these type of things. All this does come from the Theosophical Society primarily. It's very old, and letting people know about the hidden control, the mechanisms, is a part of the plan. Actually, is a part of the long-term agenda, and even from the thought of Helena Blavatsky all the way down through to Alice Bailey to today. 2025 was supposed to be the year the world teacher would turn up. Now, I don't think it has. Some people would argue AI is the world teacher that turned up around this time, and this is going to be the new God that frees mankind from its shackles and helps it transcend to the next level. So maybe they were right on that. But first, it comes with letting the whole world know who's really in control. And I think David Icke does a good job of doing that. But he also sprinkles in the New Age lie of you will be as gods, first and foremost. And that is the lie that basically sets up the New World Order. The New Age religion for the New World Order. He's no different, no better than that. So be wary of people who tell you an entity came to me and told me all this stuff. It's all I'm going to say. Unless I'm even wary of people who tell them the Holy Spirit told them to say this or something. I really am. I'm very skeptical of anyone who come claiming a divine spiritual person came to me and said, I must tell you something. I'm very skeptical of that, because we don't really know in this age of deception what these spirits really are who are coming to people and what the true intentions are. We really don't. So as far as David Icke himself might be innocent mentally, and he can be saved like anybody else once he learns the truth. But I do think the entity that taught him these things is probably more likely a demon, more likely working towards the agenda of Satan. And now, in terms of lizard people walking around wearing skin suits, I'm not so sure about that. Maybe. I think prosthetic masks have come a long way and can be extremely convincing now. Actually, I've seen examples of this. Or the FBI are using, for example, the CIA, like they could put it on and you would not realize there's a person next to you wearing a mask. You would not think it. Like, it could be a woman wearing a man's mask too, and you wouldn't know. You would think it was a man stood next to you, and they move and talk and have facial features that move and everything. And it looks very convincing now. So it could be that there are lizard type humanoid beings walking around wearing, skin suits. It really could. It's not impossible. There is precedence for that. I mean, there's a lot of movies about an underground reptilian race on the Earth, like predictive programming wise. Yeah, there's a lot of movies about that. So maybe they're telling you the truth through that externalization of the hierarchy thing. I don't know, but if there are, they are not Nephilim. They are more likely humans who hybridize themselves with reptiles, as I mentioned earlier, and have just survived underground for millennia. Like, that's more likely what it is. And they're probably working with the evil governments of the world for their own agendas, you know what I mean? To hell, and just part of the same army, they're on the same side, at the end of all of this. So I would say that, yeah, and that's it. That's all I can really think about David Icke, all that New Age thought and stuff. And again, the New Age religion is for the New World Order. That's what I would say. It's designed perfectly for that. Its key ethos is you are God. That's fundamentally what it teaches. And then there's many offshoots of that. and how that works exactly. But the idea is we are all one consciousness. We are all God collectively. And when you die, you go back to the source of that consciousness. And so does everybody else. There's no real separation of consciousness. Only our bodies separate us from the consciousness. And then some people say that's a good thing and this is great. Yeah, others think it's bad. It's like we're trapped in our flesh. And either way, the core ethos is you are God. Okay, that's what it comes down to. And that is the very first lie in the Garden of Eden. Okay, did God say you'd die if you ate from the tree of the fruit of good, the fruit of the tree of the good of evil? No, you won't die. He knows that. No, he knows that if you eat that, your eyes will be opened and you'll be as gods. So that's the first lie. He's just trying to keep you down. He's just trying to keep you weak. He knows if you eat that, you'll be like him, and he's not happy with that. He wants you to be lesser than. And that's what the first lie was from the devil, and it's the same lie. It never changed. You are God. You are God. You will be as gods. You are the arbiter of morality and everything. And you create everything with your consciousness. There is no creator above you whatsoever. There's nothing more egotistical than thinking you are God. I'm sorry. And these people claim to have lost their ego. It's absolute hypocritical nonsense through and through. That's the way I see it. But that is the more popular thought today, because that's what's kind of been pushed on the modern world in the West. And I think we're seeing a huge rise of Christian backlash to it today. I think people are sick of it, to be honest. I think they overplayed the hand a little bit too much with that one. But yeah, David Icke just comes under that category for me. And there's a lot of people like him in the truth of world. There really are. And I'd say be extremely careful of them. Extremely careful.
You said something so polarizing just a second ago. It got me tripping, man, because I never looked at it like that. You said, could there be people who essentially splice their DNA and are infused with this reptilian whatever, or whatever the case may be? Could there be those entities living underground and whatever the case may be? For sure. But now you got me thinking, like, so and my government recently declassified a bunch of stuff. Whenever they do that, I'm always wary of that too. But they just declassified a bunch of stuff where they're saying they don't call them aliens anymore. They call them interdimensional beings. So I'm thinking, this brain of mine is thinking, like, are these interdimensional beings just spliced human, who are no longer humans all the way, but they at one point in time were humans and they were part of trials and stuff like that. Now they can't coexist, on the surface like us anymore. So they got to be under here. They got to be underground. They got to be in the ocean,
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. So that's why the marine kingdom comes into this. You ever heard of this before? It's the same concept. They've got to stay out of sight and go somewhere because they're not. The operation right now is make people not believe in any of this stuff. That's been going on for a while. Okay, so a lot of these supernatural entities have had to remain hidden for a long time because they've been trying to secularize the world and make people think it's all make-believe and not real, which will only cause a huge shock wave of fear when these things do turn up on the surface, and completely shatter paradigms and make people like panic. What do we do now? And I think when they've got people in panic fear reaction mode, that's when you can control them the best. So I think they're waiting for the release of these things eventually. But first, they're prepping the world to think none of it really exists, at least the Western world. There are many there are many cultures around the earth, like I said, who are communicating with these things regularly. Don't care. Like they know that they know they're there, but we don't take those cultures seriously here. And like I said, it's a bit of this, a bit of that. The world is large and complicated, but fundamentally, God's in control. That's all I'll say. But there's this thing, there's this idea that he's not going to just wipe out everything just because he can. We have to go through this. We have to go through the story. It has to play out the way it plays out. We need to reach these conclusions of our own choice. Okay. Otherwise, God is not a love and fair, just God. He's a dictator forcing people to love him. That's not what he's trying to do here. That's not what the point. And there's people who try and twist it like that, but that is not what's happening. We made this mess. We made our beds. We've got to sleep. Okay. That's what parenting is really all about. As a father of two, I understand this quite well now. It's kind of, you got to suffer the consequences of your own actions or you're not going to learn. That's it. You're an immortal. So you're going to live forever. Your soul lives forever, is what God's warning you of here. Okay, and the consequences of that is if you live in sin, there's eternal consequences for that. All right, like it's not a joke. So if you have to suffer a little bit here on the earth to get that point, he'll let you. Okay, that's fine. What's a little suffering here? Facing an eternity of suffering afterwards. Like, he'll let you do that. It's not a problem. So, yeah, I'm rambling now.
No, this is man. Again, for those of y'all that's gonna be watching this back, we just had probably I won't even say probably the best conversation I've had on this page. And again, everything that I talked to you guys about is what we just talked about today. Again, because all of this stuff, regardless if it's politics, sports, or just phenomena and culture, it all goes back to spiritual warfare and what's our relationship like with Christ. So I appreciate this gentleman for being here. Before we let you go, is there anything that we can expect from you coming up soon in the future or anything like that? What you got coming up?
I've got a few podcast interviews I've been on. I'm going to be releasing drip feeding over the next few weeks and so forth. I have a live show every Wednesday and Sunday. I'm going to go do my live show after this right now. If you want to come on over and join in that conversation too. So yeah, that's generally what I tend to do. I'm working on the second book for the Nephilim Look Like Clowns, and that'll be hopefully the whole body of work kind of completed in a nice book format. It's a long process. I can't tell you when that's coming. It's just going to be when it's ready. It's ready. Other than that, yeah, I'm just doing what I do, man. Just comes to the channel, and there's always something new every week.
Right. Oh man, yeah, man. If I can be a part of one of your conversations one of these days, maybe if not today, maybe not today, but definitely next time for sure, that would be dope. Again, this is like I'm knocking off, like, again, as far as the content space is concerned, like I got you at the top right here, dog. Like for me, you're like right next to, as far as the impact is David Icke to me. You know what I mean? You might not see it that way, but yeah, that's how I see it, man.
So thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's definitely a compliment for sure. I definitely appreciate this conversation. Again, just to surmise what we talked about real quick, guys. We talked about how the Nephilim, how they kind of like shaped kind of like every single facet of our society, and how everything that we do kind of like relates back to kind of like the demonic in relation to, again, the way we dress, our folklore, our standards of beauty and stuff like that. You guys, make sure you like, comment, share, subscribing. Oh, also go listen and watch this gentleman right here to the right of me, understanding the conspiracy, excuse me, because he delves into this stuff, and you guys see what he knows. He really knows the stuff. So I appreciate you for showing up, man. Man, this is awesome for me, bro. I appreciate you.
No, not at all. Thanks for having me. It's been a great conversation. I've enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely, guys. And this has been tonight's Wednesday Hump Day show. Again, I appreciate y'all all being here. I'll holler at y'all next time. Peace.
God bless.
Later, man.
I want you to get together.